Ken DeFoor, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jamie?
Doing good, doing good. I love learning. I don't know what it is about the last 6 months. I think I have just been so entrenched in running a small business and being in this sort of fiduciary capacity where I feel like I have to take care of everyone. You start to neglect things in your life that help you in professional development. And whenever I hear or see something new that's fascinating, I like to kind of dive in deep and I want to learn more. And when we met, you were explaining to me the field that you're in, and it was completely new, which I so appreciate because I'm like, oh God, here's something else that I get to learn about. I'm fascinated by healthcare. I'm fascinated by, just doing things more effectively. I'm fascinated by meeting people where they're at and making sure that they have a great experience. And this all falls into what you provide. So I'm going to do a disservice if I try and describe it. Tell me about your healthcare company and why it's relevant right now.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Jamie.
Absolutely.
This is great.
Yeah.
The name of my company is Healthcare Transitions, and I help people who need short-term rehab after what they call a sentinel event, which is a stroke or a fall with a fracture, short-term rehab after hospitalization. And so I think it would make a little more sense if I could go back a little bit.
Do it. Tell me the story.
So I graduated from UTC in 2001. And a couple of months later, I went down to St. Petersburg, Florida, and started working on my nursing home administrator's license. And you have to go through basically a year internship before you can sit for your state and federal boards. So got through that.
But at a clinic, though, right? Not just in any
At a nursing
academic
facility.
center. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, at a nursing home. And so was able to get that done. Was there in St. Pete for a few years, then got moved to Washington, D.C. I was there for about a year and then was transferred to Vero Beach, Florida. And through all of these experiences, the one thing that really stood out to me, and it was the same regardless of the city, the market, the building, was that when people came in to look for a short-term rehab facility, like a nursing home, they did not really know what they were looking for or looking at or had any knowledge or information as to what to look at or look for to determine a certain level of quality of care.
That has to include like options and like potential paths, right? I mean, it's got to be almost different for everybody depending on what the sentinel event was, right? And I mean, maybe even the city that you're in, like what's even possible. I could just imagine larger cities having just more options. And
Yes.
but here we are in Chattanooga with our 200,000 people.
Well, that's the thing. There aren't really that many options. The vast majority of people who fall or have a stroke and they go in to have surgery, skilled nursing is the vast majority of where people are going to go. Skilled nursing had become, over the last 30, 40 years, a place where they are able to handle just about any type of patient, whether it be clinical, whether it be short-term rehab. And so Medicare pays for this short-term rehab. They pay up to the first 20 days, and then usually there is a supplemental. Most people have a supplemental insurance that will cover the remaining days. They pay 80% after 20 days. So that money allows people to go and get started on regaining their strength, regaining their balance, regaining their range of motion, whatever it may be that they need before they go home. And then there's home health that can do smaller things and lighter things at home as well. But skilled nursing is where you go, basically. And so what I was seeing was these people coming in to look for their loved ones, if they were a power of attorney for someone, was that they didn't know what they were looking at. And one of the challenges is that people who are being discharged out of the hospital, they're never given much time. the discharge planner will come in and they'll say, okay, I've got, here's 3 brochures of skilled nursing buildings around here. You've got 24 to 36 hours. And it's usually not more than 36 hours.
And off you go.
Well, they have to go make a decision. And they're basing this decision on no knowledge, no information. I mean, nobody goes to a nursing home if you don't absolutely have to. So people don't know the ins and outs. People don't know what to look for. People don't know the right questions to ask. People don't understand how to go through a state survey and read that and determine whether or not this is a good place for mom or dad or my husband or.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm fixated on one of the things you said, power of attorney. And so if someone has a power of attorney, typically it's because they're not of sound mind and they're being affected or afflicted, I should say, by the Alzheimer's or something of the like they just can't take care of themselves. Am I right in that?
Yes, but a lot of times when you're coming out of surgery, an elderly person does not come out of anesthesia quickly or very well at times. So, and they can't go, if they're in the hospital, they can't go into a nursing facility and make a determination on whether or not that's where they want to go. So they have to have somebody that will go and look and trying to decide whether this is the right place. And there's so many things that go into that.
Got it. Now, in a centennial event, I heard this, and I don't know how valid it is. Do people break bones first and then fall, or do they fall and the fall is the cause of the breaks?
That's a great question. It can be either, because osteoporosis is a thing that most elderly people have to deal with, especially women. There are times when the bone will break if they're just walking or step up a step or something to that effect. But I would say most of the time they fall and then the fracture happens.
Okay. So they've got this 24 to 36 hours, and then what typically happens?
During that time?
Yeah.
Well, the person who's responsible for making the decision has to go out and tour. If they do any kind of research, meet the administrator, take a walk around the building. But that's really, when you walk through a door of a nursing facility, sometimes you can be hit with smells.
Yes.
There are accidents that happen all the time. So one of the things that I try to help people with is that just because you walk in and there is a smell, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a poorly run building. There are different smells to new number 2, old number 2, pee that's just happened, old pee. And so sometimes when people walk in and they smell something, it's like, oh no, this isn't the right place. But it's not necessarily indicative of quality of care.
Looks could be deceiving. So this could be like you and I. And what I mean is that at our age point, like my mom and dad are about 80 years old. Let's just say someone's had a fall. I wouldn't know what to look for if I walked in. I think the environment, just the whole judge the book by its cover, because I don't have any experience, I don't know what to look for. I'm passing judgment immediately. I mean, it's my mom, And so what you're saying is that's a common misnomer, and that there's other things I'm supposed to be looking at when I'm trying to figure out if this is the best place for my mom.
Oh, yeah. Lots of other things. And that's what I try to help people with, cueing them on things to look for. Are the staff and the residents interacting? Are they interacting positively? Are the residents clean? Is their hair done?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sure. It's that kind of attention to detail that can be an indicator of the quality of care, the relationships between the patients and the staff, the food, which is a huge thing. The dining times are the number one most important activity of the day. If you're not eating, you're not getting the nutrients that you need to heal bones, keep your skin integrity high. It's extremely important. And if it's not good, then the residents probably are not going to eat it or eat as much of it, as much as they need.
And we don't want to show them find out that mom's hungry.
Right.
I mean, it's also gonna retard the recovery process. I mean, the whole nine.
Sure. Sure. So that and the rehab, there's a lot of important things that go into it, but food is commonly overlooked.
Now, is the rehab at the facility
Yes.
okay?
It is at the facility. Usually it's 3 times a day. And it really depends on what the diagnosis is, what happened, and if they are able to be in rehab when they first get back from the hospital. Some people are too weak. Some people are still confused from the anesthesia. Elderly people don't react well to anesthesia, and a lot of times it takes them a little longer to get over it. So if you have someone that's confused and you're trying to get them to lift weights or practice getting in and out of a car or out of a wheelchair, it's not going to work very well. So sometimes there's a few days when they get to the nursing facility to acclimate them, to help them understand what's going on. And then there's other times where they're ready to go. They're motivated. They don't want to stay there. They want to get into rehab as soon as possible and get back home.
I have all healthy clients. I know we're on a podcast and I do lots of things, but in my heart, I'm still a hairdresser. And when somebody has anesthesia and they start having mass hair loss, like, well, how long before my body in my hair cycle, I'm just back to normal? It's 2 years for a healthy person. I can't imagine the brain fog that happens with someone's maybe 70, 80 years or north of that, what the impact on the body is. That's got to be hard.
Right. And sometimes they don't fully come out of it. Really depends on the body's chemistry. A lot of it depends on the age. But there are cases where they just don't come out of the anesthesia and get back to their prior level of function. And that usually means that long-term care placement is the next step.
Now, are you helping with that transition as well? Or are you out of the hospital or all of it?
I can help with all of it. My niche really is trying to help families through the discharge process from the hospital and into the skilled facility where they're going to get rehab. Now, I can also come, let's say if the power of attorney or the son or whoever is not in town, I can go back and check on the person, make sure certain interventions are in place, basic things. Are they being taken care of? Are they clean? That kind of thing. But interventions are important. If if you're a fall risk, if you're still a little confused after anesthesia and you just had a broken hip and you're trying to get out of bed, an intervention would be like a mat beside your bed, just in case you fell. Sounds like a little thing, but it can be the difference between just falling or falling and re-injuring yourself.
Ideally, what's your radius from? I mean, you're
Cleveland to Dalton.
How do you feel about the facilities that are in our area? Now you've got I'm really curious now. You're saying there's a deficit, but how's our local area?
I think our local area it's fine. The thing with skilled nursing buildings is that even if you're a 5-star rated building from Medicare, there are so many things that you have to track, that you have to look over each day. And it's very easy for something to not get noticed, to not get picked up, to not be seen. And so I think they all do a good job. But, when it comes to placing someone, first of all, who's going to be visiting them the most? So we may want to look in that area. And then once we go to tour the building, me helping them to make sure that there isn't anything really wrong. Like I was in a building a few months ago and there was a light fixture over a bed that was crooked, that wasn't secured on one end, things like that. And buildings do, they don't all do the same job as far as attention to detail, helping people specifically with certain basic things. Sometimes residents, they aren't changed. They're clothes, not their briefs. But it's just a constant push to get these people what they need. And a lot of it is just basic stuff. But I would feel confident in just about any building here. And I don't want to speak negatively about any building.
Yeah.
So it really is a team effort. I think that's what a lot of family members don't understand, is that it is a team effort to take care of this person. So the facility is doing what they're responsible for doing. Certain things fall through the cracks at times. And so when the family comes to visit, they see something and they let the staff know, and they should jump on it and correct whatever it is that is the issue. But as through my experience, the families that came to us and would tell us, okay, I need you to take a look at this, look at that, was always more successful than a family member coming in and raising Cain and getting very upset, because it's got to be viewed as a team effort to take care of these people.
A lot of my clients look like me, and I don't mean physically.
Highly, very handsome.
Right. I'll take that. You can stay all day. People gravitate towards you. Your retention has tendency to be higher as a hairdresser in your age group, and so I have a bunch of clients that are Gen Xers that are that middle aged. God, I've turned 49 on Monday, but they have parents that are in their 80s, and I've heard this story so many times. I've never heard a story where someone was talking about a skilled nursing facility and they were like, "This great thing happened," and even if it did, they might not have been as willing to talk about it. We're back to that, like, it takes, what is it, like 8 muscles to frown and 64 muscles to smile. Because bad news travels fast, right? And there's so much more energy for negative reviews, all that stuff. The people that are taking care of their parents, though, are like me in that they've got lives, right? They're married, they have kids, they either have a career, a small business, they've got sports on the weekends, and it's hard to go in and take care of or be responsible for the person that's in this facility. Oftentimes, in my experience, the spouse isn't able to do it either. Like, they can't travel, they might be homebound, or they might not be. And so it sounds to me like you've got this fiduciary capacity where you're help not only placing them, but are you also helping to sort of bridge the gap with the care? I mean, are you over them? Are you able to be there the entire time while they're there, or is this predominantly a placement and we're helping you make the decision?
Well, predominantly it's a placement where we're helping to make the decision, but I am able to go back a couple of times a week and check on the patient if the family wants me to, like if they're out of town or can't get over there. And then I would report back, it's also, it can be a tricky situation, because I don't want the skilled nursing facility to look at me as somebody coming in and a gotcha guy.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's not fun. And so I would make sure that the administrator, the director of nursing, knew that I was just here to help. I'm not trying to make a big deal out of anything. And so I would tell them what I saw if there was anything. And I would not want to be viewed as a gotcha guy that's coming in for the family, looking for things that are wrong, that kind of thing. Although I would be to a degree, but it's all in how you handle it. It's all in how you interact with the administration. Unfortunately, skilled nursing has turned into a gotcha business, and it has been for years. That's why you don't hear a whole lot of good. People focus on the negative, but there are so many things every day that happen in a nursing home that are great. Connections being made, help that's being given, love that's being shared. People don't hear about that as much as they do what went wrong. And working in a skilled nursing building is extremely challenging. The government has set up regulations that you have to have a certain amount of CNAs and nurses there per day. So if someone calls out, what have you, you're scrambling. And especially since COVID, healthcare has gotten very, very challenging when it comes to staffing because of these minimum staffing requirements.
If my mom goes in and you helped us place her, what are you telling me to look for during the duration of her visit, just to make sure everything looks right?
Well, I would make sure that you got a copy of the interventions list, because there isn't a whole lot you can do. I mean, you're probably not going to sit there and watch them give her medication, more of the tedious things like that. You would want to be looking at the repair of the building. You would want to be looking at cleanliness of your mom. You would want to have a list of everything that's supposed to be done for her, a shower schedule. Make sure, like, say she is supposed to get a shower on Wednesday. You come in Wednesday evening to visit, and it doesn't seem like she's had a shower.
So know the schedule. That's what I just heard. We got to know the schedule.
Yes, and that all goes into helping and working. I really want to say working with the staff at the building. Things go much smoother when you show that you're there to help keep them on track, rather than blowing up at them if they didn't give her a shower on Wednesday. And usually they're responsive. They should be, and I think they would be. But other things, floors, corners, ceiling tiles. Is there mold on the ceiling tiles? Are there lights out? How does the building look when you first come in? All of these things are related to how the building is run. And in 2023, Erlanger discharged 37,000 people, Park Ridge discharged 18,000, and Memorial discharged 19,000. Now, the national average for who needs skilled nursing, rehab, is anywhere from 18 to 20%. So
of that total number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're talking 13 to 14,000 people that were discharged and most likely had no idea what they were getting into, the questions to ask, what to look for. And so when I recognized that, I thought, there's got to be something I can do for these people. There's got to be people out there who need and want this help. I have beta tested it on 2 families, and it went exactly how I had hoped. But the thing that I was most surprised at was giving them the information, cueing them with questions, that kind of thing. That was all great and good. But what surprised me the most was how much it meant to the family to have somebody there with them saying, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it through this. I'm going to help. Just, putting your arm around the client or the POA who has no idea what they're doing, and they have less than 36 hours to make a decision that's going to most likely impact the remaining years of their loved one's life. If they don't get the right kind of rehab, then they're not going to get back to their prior level of function. If they have a bad experience, all of these things, if they go into the skilled building and it just doesn't work out, they see all kinds of things that they don't like, so now they want to move their loved one. Well, that transition is very,
very hard,
very stressful for the patient, and you really don't want to ever do that.
This is not a punch the clock career. This is not a field that you get into and you're like, oh, I guess. It seems to me there's got to be a certain level of passion to work with these people in this field. Like you said, it's hard. There's high emotions. There's lots of expectations. And since coming to know you and doing my research, I can see the confusion that could occur because all of the bodies from the point where you fall, until they get back home or wherever the final destination is, none of them are communicating from the onset. Was there a pivotal moment that you said, this is where I need to be, and this will be what I do moving forward?
I've been kicking around this idea for a long time, and I don't remember a pivotal moment, but I do remember when I was in Vero Beach I guess this could be a moment. The clouds kind of parted, and I realized that everybody that I toured knew nothing about what they were looking for. It's a very stressful situation. And it's stressful because the hospitals are only going to get paid up to a certain point. So if they don't discharge this person, they're going to be taking care of them for free because Medicare or their insurance is only going to pay for so many days. So the discharge planners are pushing, they're giving them a deadline, and it's like trying to make a decision on something you know nothing about.
When you don't know what you don't know, it's hard.
Yeah,
Everything's hard.
sure.
I think because of social media technology today and the way we have raised our youth with, devices, that it's harder for people to turn their me sign off and turn their you sign on. And my working assumption is that if you're in healthcare in these kinds of facilities, that you have to show up every day with your you sign on. How do you feel about the workforce that's spending the most time with these patients? How are they doing? I could see like the standard of care kind of slowly eroding all of the time, but I want to hear from you what your experience is on basically on the average of what the care that these patients are getting on a day-to-day basis over, I don't know, last couple of years.
Yeah. First of all, the CNA position, certified nursing assistant, who does most of the direct care, is the hardest job, or one of the hardest jobs in the building. They're doing the lifting, they're doing the turning, they're doing the feeding, they're doing the changing, they're doing the showering. And those people, from my experience, really, really love to do what they do. Now, it doesn't mean they don't get burned out. It doesn't mean they don't get tired. But there's lots of things, other things you can do for that amount of money. And for people to come in and, it's serious. Like, we're expecting snow tomorrow. There's going to be CNAs and nurses that are probably going to have to spend the night
Oh my gosh.
at the building. And so you have to be committed. And I don't see any issue with quality of care overall.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah, again, it's something that has to be constantly overseen. The director of nursing, the administrator, they all need to be circling the building, talking to people, seeing things before either a family member or a state surveyor sees. Now, skilled nursing is one of the most heavily regulated businesses in the country. And so if there is an issue with quality of care, it's most likely going to be addressed pretty quickly because there are numbers that family members can call if they have a big issue with a nursing facility or any long-term care building. And then the representative from the state is required to come out and do an investigation. So the standards remain high, which is a great thing because these people we're talking about, it's different than an assisted living. Skilled nursing, most of the time they need a lot of help. And if they don't get that help that they need, they're probably going to decline.
What are the regulatory boards for a nurse? I know we have like nursing boards, but when you're talking about regulatory bodies that are in charge of quality of care, or and I'm not just talking about for nursing homes. I mean for like if you're a nurse anywhere, what are the regulatory bodies that are maintaining the standards? The people that are calling to report people. Who are those people?
Okay, they would not be calling the Board of Nursing. They would be calling a hotline number for Medicare. Medicare would then take the report, and then they're required to send someone out to do an investigation. So that person will look through records, They'll talk to people, they'll talk to the resident, um, and determine if there was neglect or negligence or anything negative that the building overlooked or didn't take care of. But it wouldn't be, I mean, in extreme cases, yes. Like, let's say that a family member saw a nurse taking a medication, something like that. That wasn't theirs, that was a patient's, which unfortunately happens sometimes. Then what would happen usually is they would report it to the director of nursing, and then they would do an investigation, and then it's possible they would be referred to the board of nursing and possibly have their license
Revoked or
revoked or suspended,
but
fines.
if you get a complaint, it follows you, doesn't it? Like if somebody complains on a specific nurse, whether there's a fine, like isn't there a mark against the license that just kind of follows them wherever they go?
Yes, whenever you go to get, if you're trying to get on as a nurse somewhere, usually the DON or HR will check the license and make sure it's clear. And if not, it's up to the building on whether or not they want to move forward. They'll probably call him or her in, ask what happened, and then go from there. I mean, sometimes they don't get the job.
So now, if somebody's at home, grandma's at home, and she falls and she breaks a bone, she's getting discharged from the hospital, and she calls Ken, and you place her. And
Well, let me stop you right there. I do not make the decision on where the people go.
well, you're consulting them.
Yes, I'm consulting
Yeah.
them, but I make that very clear to the families that this is your decision. I'm here to help. I'm here to give you as much information as possible. I'm here to tour with you. I'm here to cue you with questions. I'm here to go over the state survey. But ultimately, it is your decision.
So then the skilled nursing facility has physical therapy. They're staying there, but that's not the final destination. Or is it sometimes?
Hopefully not.
Okay.
Usually, if they come from home and they have a sentinel event, they will go through rehab, go through surgery, and then most of the time go back home. Now, that depends on their age, that depends on their physical makeup, because sometimes they can't go back home. It's just one of those sad things where an event like this, that's why there's so many people, or there's so much care taken, or there should be, with senior people with trip hazards, anything that could make them fall, because you don't want to go through this.
Again.
You're right. And some people never make it back to their prior level of function.
When they come to this first facility and there is an opportunity for them to leave, are these the types of facilities that could keep this person for duration, or is this a go between while they're rehabbing before they might have to wind up in long-term care where, you eventually, like my grandmother's in memory care. I'm trying to decipher in my head if her place would do what you're talking about, or if you transition to some place where, like, okay, you're healthy, you're as good as you're going to get, but you will spend the rest of your time here until the end. Is that this type of place? Can it be? Or is there another location if they have completely physically rehabbed and they're as good as they're going to get, but they can't go home? What then?
It really depends on what they're able to do for themselves. It's called activities of daily living, or ADLs. And basically, that means, can you feed yourself? Can you bathe yourself? Can you dress yourself? Can you do the most basic things in life? And depending on that evaluation will depend on where you need to go. There are some people who stay in skilled nursing because the anesthesia affected them severely, the stroke was severe, and they can't do the basic things for themselves. But if they're able to do a certain number of ADLs, such as dress, such as bathe, then they might be more appropriate for an assisted living, which is a step down. And,
A step down how, when you say that?
with care.
Okay.
Yes, skilled nursing is basically the highest level of care that you can get, and you're looking, probably $8,000 or $9,000 a month for skilled nursing, as opposed to 5 to 6 with assisted living.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So, are you helping the families as well with the transition from skilled nursing to assisted living?
That's something I can do. Sure. Honestly, Jamie, that's the easy part.
Mm.
Because when you're in the business so long, you understand what, and I've run assisted living buildings before too. And so I understand their baseline as far as what the person has to do for themselves to be appropriate. And so I already have an understanding of, as I see this person, as I see their progress, or as I speak to the family and get news back, where they're going to be appropriate. So yes, it really it depends on each person and how they come out of their surgery, their rehab, the anesthesia, because there's no blanket way of determining that. It's one person at a time. But because I've run both assisted and skilled nursing buildings, I have a good idea of where they would need to be.
In the last couple of months, I've heard multiple times about the impact of the baby boomers, and that we could have our population could actually be shrinking. And so, tell me about that landscape right now. My thought process is that you could be really busy if people are getting older and they're falling and they're trying to get placed. But now that I've seen it on TV multiple times in literally the last 3 or 4 months, are you seeing the same thing? I mean, is this one of those things where it's going to be a more commonplace as a discussion because the baby boomers are really starting to age, and I hate to say to die off?
Oh yeah, this has been talked about for years and years. What's going to happen when the boomers get into their senior years, and that's why you're seeing lots of assisted livings being built. I mean, and
In town, yes.
and like 3 miles of your studio here, there's probably 5 assisted livings. And so they are preparing for the boomers. But to answer your question, um, yeah, but the boomers aren't like any other. I mean, they're no different than any other generation. If you haven't spent any time in a nursing home, you don't know what you're looking for or looking at to determine the quality of care. So they're going to need it as much as anyone, just a guide, really. So I think, yes, the boomers, it's going to be a new frontier, I think, for long-term care. And there's been a lot of speculation and what's going to happen. What are they going to want to stay home and hire, nurses or CNAs, which they could do. It's very expensive. So we just don't really know yet, but they're going to be going through the same things as their parents' generation and every other generation. They're probably going to fall. They're probably going to break something. They're probably going to have a stroke. And they're going to have to go to the hospital, and then they're going to have short-term rehab.
I've always been fascinated by Alexian Brothers. Honestly, I know I see the trucks, and it's the only place where I see the trucks driving around, and they're going from here to there. They're, whether they're picking stuff up for the residents or they're transporting the residents. What kind of facility is that? And what's the deal?
Alexian Brothers, you're talking about on Signal Mountain?
Yes.
Yes, that is called a continuing care retirement community. So that means it has all 3 levels of senior care. The most minimal of care, independent living, where you can pretty much do everything you need to do for yourself. Your meals are prepared. There's programs and activities and things put on. And then there's assisted living, where you need a little more help. And then there's skilled nursing, which basically is the highest level of care that you can go to other than a hospital.
So skilled nursing is a relatively new term for me. Is that the same thing as memory care as well?
No, so when I say skilled nursing, I mean a nursing home.
Okay, because I'm thinking in phases. because I've just gone through this with my grandmother. But they have the ability to be the type of location where you might consult somebody to go there.
Sure. Sure. And everybody does it different when it comes to CCRCs. But a lot of times, yeah, you give them a certain amount of money and you are guaranteed a spot through each level of care that you need over the years.
Okay. On a personal note, my drive to do what I do stems from 15 years of kind of growing up in the shadows of my mother-in-law and father-in-law that have been very successful business people. And the number of times that I've heard things like silver spoon and, oh, must be nice and those kinds of things, as if Harriet and I didn't have the ability or the drive to build a hairbenders on our own, it drives me nuts. And it is part of the drive every day for why all of the things that I do, podcast, room, revive, whatever it is. And I know that your dad and your uncle are prominent people in investing. They've changed the community. Have you ever felt like you grew up in the shadow of your dad or your uncle?
Oh, sure.
And what's that been like?
Well, first of all, they're great. But yeah, it's tough to live up to. And worked for my family for several years. That had its challenges.
Amen.
Yeah. But, I try not to let that get to me. I try not to think about that too much because it takes away from what I'm trying to do and it takes my focus away. One of the main things that makes me feel the best is helping people. That was one of my favorite parts about running these long-term care communities was just sitting down with a resident, just talking to them, how much they appreciated that. Just a few minutes, the big smiles I would get, doing little things for them. It really meant a lot. That's really the basis on why I'm trying to do what I do now.
I would hope nothing less, especially if I have to call you.
Yeah.
Uncle Byron has been in healthcare in some way, shape, or form. I don't know exactly what. Now, did you work with him with healthcare? Was he an inspiration for the healthcare? Or is this a road that you deviated to on your own and you've followed this path?
Well, when I moved from Chattanooga after I graduated UTC, I moved to St. Petersburg. That was Byron's nursing home company.
Okay.
So, and that's where it really all started for me.
And so which city did you get to meet the lovely Nicole?
That was when I was transferred to Washington, D.C.
Okay, we're in Washington, D.C. because you were hovering around my stomping grounds at both locations. And I mean, you and I have had this conversation, privately, but I grew up in Jacksonville and Orlando area. So you start talking about Vero Beach or even St. Petersburg. That's my Central Florida. And I spent 10 years in D.C. So where in D.C. did you live? And tell me about the place where you were working and tell me how you met Nicole.
Yeah, I was living in Alexandria. My uncle had a building. It wasn't in Alexandria. Oh, what was the name of that little town?
Old Town? No, or no?
It was like right in between Alexandria and Springfield.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that's a gorgeous part of the country. I mean, that whole area, Springfield, McLean, all that. You're in that whole little.
Yes. For some reason, I cannot remember the name. But anyway, I was asleep on a Saturday morning, or maybe it was a Sunday morning, and Byron called, which he rarely ever calls me, and said, "Hey, I want you to meet somebody. Her name's Nicole. Here's her email address." He said she's at her computer right now.
How do you have all this information, Uncle Byron? Like, I mean, wait, what do you mean she's at her computer right now?
Right, exactly. So I said, okay. And so we started talking, started emailing, then we started talking, and then we met at the nursing home I was running at the time.
Okay.
I think she was coming back from a high school reunion at the time. And
what high school?
Shenandoah Valley Academy.
Okay.
And we went on a date after that and rode the subway, went down to the National Mall.
Good old Metro.
Yeah. And then we've been together ever since. We have 3 beautiful boys, twin 15-year-olds and an 11-year-old. Yeah, I'm just really excited for her to have this opportunity with you, and she's going to be great.
Oh, no doubt. It was an easy decision. Three boys. So I'm growing up in a completely different environment. I am surrounded by women from the time I wake up till I go to bed. And you've got a house full of testosterone, and you're going to have almost all teenagers here in 2 more years. What do the boys get into at home? What's the vibe like? It's Christmas time, New Year's. Everybody's at home raising Cain. Like, what are they doing right now?
Well, they're back in school right now, but
Right.
over Christmas break, there was a lot of sleeping in. There was a lot of hanging out with friends. Oh, video games. One of the twins is a big FIFA soccer
That's right.
player game. They all play soccer. Nate plays for CFC, and Nicholas, his brother, used to play for CFC, and now they're both going to play for their school in the spring coming up. So there's very rarely a dull moment. Somebody's in somebody's room. Dad,
Yeah.
tell them to get out of my room. Arguments. For some reason, they love to argue. But for the most part, they get along good. And Nicole and I have really stressed that and stressed having each other's backs, watching out for each other.
Total team
And
game
They'll
parenting.
beat on each other, but they've got each other's backs.
I've had very enlightening questions from my girls. I've been caught off guard with just the intellect and where they're coming from. All of the super alarming questions that I've ever gotten in parenting have come from my son. And it just caused you to ask him, like, okay, where were you just now that you're coming to me with this question? Like, how did we get to this point right now? Because I'm having to do this like risk assessment over, why, where's this question coming from? But I think that's the unique part about raising boys.
How old is your boy?
So he's going to be 16 in
Okay.
2 weeks.
Wow.
And so he doesn't know, but we're car shopping right now. And I waited because I got the report card, and the report card said that he had done all of the things he was supposed to do in order to get said vehicle.
Great.
So this is a lot better now. We bought a car for Melina when she turned 16. My oldest is 18. And it was in the months, right, that summer after COVID, where you were paying ridiculous sums of money for used cars that were half or less of what you were looking at. But
Oh, sure.
I was concerned with her learning in a car that wasn't hers. I wanted her to have to be practicing in the vehicle that she was going to be driving every day. And so just sign of the times. But wow, I'm looking at the prices of the cars now, and my level of hostility is much lower because we're going to pay what looks like to be a fair market price for the vehicles. Twin 15, right? So you're getting ready to do the same thing with both of them, right?
Yeah, they're studying for their permits and reviewing that and
You taking them
asking
driving?
to drive. Yeah,
Okay. Very cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
they're asking to drive, and I have a cousin in Asheville who has 2 sons, and neither one of them were really excited about driving when they turned 16, and I just couldn't understand that. I mean, that was like, 16 was the first step to real freedom.
Yes.
So the boys are excited about it, which I'm glad.
They're calling for snow tomorrow. And to your point, I took my driving test in Washington, D.C. in the snow because I wasn't going to wait. Had a little Suzuki Samurai, popped it in 4-wheel drive, and I was taking my test because I wanted that. But we didn't have devices back then. I mean, there was nothing for me to go to. I mean, we had to make our fun, when I was 16, 35 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but
I
yeah,
get it.
I don't get it with why they're not like chomping at the bit to get it. I have clients that are 18 and they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, you're an adult. If you can go to war and you can sign a contract, you should have your driver's license. It should just be part of it.
Sure.
But I don't know. with the incoming administration and Elon Musk, I wouldn't be surprised if we're all in, driverless cars and people are, we're not even driving anymore, which I hope that never happens. I enjoy driving.
Yeah, me too. Maybe on long trips.
So where can people go to find you right now?
DeFoorHealth@gmail.com. Still working on my website. I do have a Facebook page, Ken DeFoor Healthcare Transitions.
Okay.
So hopefully I can get my website up and going pretty quick, and that will be another way. I also need to get on Instagram, so I'm trying to work on that as well. But that's one of the main reasons I wanted to come on your show, was because I don't have a great way to reach a whole lot of people right now. Hopefully, someone will hear this and realize that they're going to need help at some point, or they need help right now, or they needed help 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
So
Great median on digital, and any help that you need in that area, we can help out. But the podcast will do good to be used for content, so that it's not you telling people, it's me asking and then hearing the story. It makes it easier, and people are going to YouTube because they want to see Ken, they want to hear Ken, they want to feel like they know Ken, and I think that YouTube's the best medium to do that.
I agree.
So I enjoyed it. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it too.
And we'll circle back around here in a year or so, and see how things are going, see how things are evolved. Maybe this is a new project we're getting off the ground. Maybe the new administration will help propel things so that there's a windfall of success in the future. So
I certainly hope so.
I appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.